Hello, and welcome back to the Studio I podcast. I hope you are having a wonderful day or night. Today, I want to talk about that little voice inside your head. That little voice that decides whether you are a good human, a bad human, whether you're doing enough, whether you are failing in life. My voice seems to be convinced of the latter. At least it used to be. And that's what I want to talk about today. I truly believe we all have that voice. And for some people, it's a happy and positive one. But for a lot of people, it is a mean, judgmental, and toxic voice. And if yours is toxic, just remember that it isn't your fault. We have been raised as a society to have that toxic little voice inside of our heads. Capitalism is better for it. If we would all feel good about ourselves and good enough, then we would never buy as much stuff as we do now. Think about the beauty industry or the weight loss industry. They're fully funded on you not feeling good enough about yourself. They sell you the idea that you aren't good enough so they can sell you more stuff. So how can you be surprised that in your day-to-day life you are always questioning whether you are enough of a person, whether you're doing enough, whether you are happy enough, whether you are living that ideal lifestyle that has been sold to you. And most of us aren't living that lifestyle because it isn't our ideal. We're made to believe that it was, but a lot of us don't want a big mansion with a lot of stuff and a whole bunch of money in the bank. For a lot of people, that is not our dream life. I mean, hell, I want a lot of money in the bank. I sure do. But I don't want a mansion. I want a little ecological house that doesn't have a huge impact on the planet that I'm trying to save, which is exactly the opposite of what those corporations are doing that are selling you all that kind of stuff. That's getting sidetracked a little bit. Today, I really want to talk about the ways that you are toxic. The ways that you are toxic to yourself and to others around you. And I want to give you some opportunities and some ideas on how you can actually tackle those things. You will be so much happier for it, and your surroundings will be as well. One of the most common forms of toxic behavior towards ourselves is self-criticism, and that is partly what I said before. It is partly something that we learned how to do over time. We see our parents critique themselves. We get critiqued by other people all the time. So we often turn into our own worst critics. We compare our lives with the lives of other people and we spot all the differences. We make that out to be as a failure, while being different doesn't have to be a problem at all. That negative self-talk can be so bad in so many ways. Not only will it make you an unhappier person and a less likable person to be around, it will also stand in your way of creating that dream life that you aspire to have. Because if you always talk negatively about yourself and you're always pointing out the things that you cannot do, then you will probably not believe that you can actually achieve those dreams that you so badly want. And then you start self-sabotaging yourself and you just keep going around in the same circle and you stay where you've been all along. So if you want to bring your dream life to life, that sounded weird. If you want to make all of your dreams come true, you will have to start by the way that you think about yourself. You will have to learn to believe in yourself. You will have to become your own biggest support and your own biggest cheerleader. And that sounds really daunting right now. I know that. But step by step, learning how to love yourself and learning how to show yourself compassion will help lots in achieving those dreams and those goals that you have written down in some notebook right now. I know they exist. Now you only need the confidence to make those come to life. But so how do you do that? How do you start learning how to love yourself. Because we often hear the advice of using affirmations and saying and completely changing your viewpoints, but that might often achieve the contrary of what you want to achieve. If I don't find myself beautiful in the body that I am in right now, and I start telling myself every morning, I am beautiful, it might remind me of not feeling beautiful. But if you can start by accepting a little piece of your body at a time, by thanking it for what it does for you, and just achieving a neutral standpoint about it, you don't have to love yourself yet. That isn't the first step. The first step is being neutral about it. It's just accepting that it exists, accepting that it's a reality. And then you can move on to changing it or starting to love it. But the first thing is accepting that it exists. It's with everything. If you probably have bad habits, things that you don't like about yourself. Instead of denying that they exist and just feeling bad about them in the background, accept that they exist. And once you accept, you can then start working on either changing those things in a curiosity mindset, or you can try to start loving those things about yourself and seeing that difference from other people isn't always bad. Comparison is one of the biggest devils out there. And I get it. I like to look at the life of other people, but I use it as inspiration, not as the thing to get myself down about. If I see somebody else buying a house, I try to shift my mindset to see it as a reminder that I can do that too. Because if somebody else achieves something, it doesn't mean they're taking away from your light. It doesn't mean that you can't do the same thing. You can learn from them. You can watch to what they did and how they got to that place. But it isn't a reason to believe that you cannot do it. They didn't take a piece of your pie. You get to have your whole own damn pie to eat, to achieve, to make, to bake, whatever you want to say. I hope you understand what I'm getting at here. This is a very unscripted tangent of the podcast. And when I don't script, things get weird. But maybe we should just move on to the next point of the podcast, because I have other content on how to love yourself, how to take care of yourself. I especially love my video about habits to start in 2023, where I talk about implementing self-care and all the ways to implement self-care. It is a great video if you want to learn on how to become a better, kinder person towards yourself. I will link it in the description box of this podcast, of this video. I think you're going to get a lot out of that one. But the next point that I wanted to talk about was toxic positivity. And I think that toxic positivity is one of my biggest nemesis. I hate it. I feel like we've been coming off of this culture quite a bit, and that is great, because honestly, we had a point where we were all about being happy. We had to be happy. Happy was the goal. Happy was what you needed to be. If you weren't a happy human being, you were doing something wrong. And I get it. We all love to be happy, but you can't always be happy. And the idea that we have to put on a smile on our face and we have to enjoy life all the time and it needs to be all rainbows and sunshine. And if your life isn't rainbows and sunshine right now, something is wrong with you. That is one of the most toxic things of all. And I hate it. I do honestly believe that every bad situation can be a moment of growth. But when you're in that situation, it just plain sucks. And there is no other way to go about it. If you just lost your job, me telling you, oh, but look on the bright side, you have all the time in the world to pursue that side hobby that you were doing right now, isn't gonna make you feel better. It's only going to make you invalidated for your feelings. It's going to make you invalidated for feeling upset, for being panicked, for being stressed. You just saw your income slip through your fingers and you have no idea how you're going to pay the bills next month. And me saying, oh, but look at it, look on the bright side. You can find a new job right now that you enjoy more, is not what you need. What you need right now is for me to give you a hug and to ask you, what can I do to make it better? And we often fall into this trap of trying to cheer up other people right away because we are uncomfortable with those sad or bad labeled emotions that we labeled as bad. We don't like anger. We don't like sadness. We sure as hell don't like embarrassment or fear. And we push them away. We push them away in other people because it's not something that we want to deal with. But we also do that with ourselves because other people push those things away in us. So we believe that those emotions are bad and we should have as little of them as we possibly can. But that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the people around you. Because if we ignore emotions, they will come out in another way. I was angry at my parents when I was around 16 years old. I was so angry at the world. But I pushed those feelings away because you weren't supposed to feel that way. And it came out as full-blown depression. It came out as sadness. For some people, it may come out as substance abuse or scrolling on TikTok for hours on end. But if you don't deal with your feelings, your body and your mind will deal with them for you. And it's usually not in a great way. They will drag on forever because if you ignore your feelings and if you ignore what's actually going on, then you are not focusing on solving it. You are focusing on making it go away. But making it go away means accepting that it's there in the first place and then trying to fix it. But because we don't allow ourselves to do that and we are stuck in that toxic positivity loop, we never deal with our feelings. We never deal with our problems. And we are just all collectively so unhappy in a broken society because we don't deal with the bad shit. So you just start dealing with the bad shit. Please learn how to deal with those things. You will be so much happier for it. The world will be so much happier for it. And I'm getting very passionate about this. Or maybe I should give you some tips on how you can do this. Because if I just tell you right now, start feeling your feelings, you probably think, oh hell no bitch, I ain't gonna do that. So let's try and approach this step by step because I get it is overwhelming and you probably don't want to start and you probably also don't know where to start. So the first thing that I would advise you start with is asking yourself what you need, because feeling your feelings all at once is a lot and it will probably feel like drowning. So by learning how to take care of yourself first when you are feeling a feeling, you can slowly ease yourself into dealing with them better. Because if you have a friend that is all upset and you're a good friend, then you will probably ask, what can I do to help? But you can ask yourself that question too. When I started asking myself what I needed, when I was feeling stressed or angry, I started realizing that it was often exercise. When I feel stressed, when I'm on the verge of crying and all seems to go wrong, right now I know to put on my running shoes and go. Because for me, that is the best feeling, the best way to deal with those feelings. Because I get to think, I get to process, but I also get to get that energy out of my body by running as fast as I can. And sometimes it's running as fast as I can until I cry, but at least I process instead of just trying to keep functioning. For you, it might be to withdraw, to have a self-care day, or to simply have a shower, a nap, or talk it out with a person that actually hurt you. But by asking yourself what you need to make yourself feel better, You have to accept that there is a feeling. And that is, I think, the most important step. To recognize a feeling and to know that it's valid. Every single emotion or feeling is valid. It's not always rational, but it's valid because it's how you feel about the situation. And it deserves to be treated with the same severity as the feeling that you have. I think, especially women, we all know that time before we get our periods when we are extremely tired, and that dropping a pen might be enough to make you hysterically cry. It sucks. Is it completely over the top? Of course it is, but it's valid because it's how you feel. And if that means that you need to eat a whole block of chocolate to feel better, then eat that damn block of chocolate. But allow yourself to feel upset. And then allow yourself to treat yourself as your best friend or your child or your mother or your family or whoever it is that you care about more than anything in the world, and treat yourself that way. Make sure that you allow that feeling to exist, and then you bring a compassionate and care mindset to yourself to then learn how to process. And processing that you do by allowing the feeling in your body, by allowing the fear, the anger, the sadness, allow it to come up, allow it to consume you and to get it out. And then get to the root of what caused that issue. And then maybe you can eliminate it in the future. There's tons of journaling prompts or podcasts or meditations that help you figure out what the actual problem is, and those things can help you to be guided through those feelings. For example, an app that I really love is Intention. It's by Michelle P. And she has a meditation on processing difficult emotions. And it is one of the best ways to go through those emotions. But I'm sure that there's a lot of other podcast episodes or meditations that exist on it. And I would just advise you to look those things up and try one of those out. It will probably help a lot. And then one last note on that compassion and care and asking yourself what you need. Once you get a little bit more advanced and how to deal with your feelings, you can ask yourself what you need in two parts. What do you need right now? And what do you need long term? Imagine that you realize that your boyfriend is making you upset all the time. What you need right now might be a good talk with your best friend. What you need long term might be to get out of that relationship. If you are feeling extremely exhausted, stressed, and overwhelmed, what you might need right now is a nap. What you might need long term is to change jobs or to change your lifestyle. But that requires a little bit more of knowing yourself. So start slow. Start by being kind to yourself and allowing yourself to feel, and then start processing and thinking and regulating. But first, just start accepting and taking care of yourself. And one last note, if you have trauma, for example, there's really big feelings that come up, make sure that when you allow yourself to feel them, that you feel safe. So that might need to be with a therapist or with loved ones around. Because dealing with extremely big trauma on your own might be a dangerous situation in itself. So if you feel like your feelings are too big to deal with on your own, please ask somebody to help. You don't have to do this all alone. And that brings me to my last point about toxic positivity, is to try to surround yourself with people who allow you to feel. People who care enough about you to accept all of you, not only the happy, bubbly parts. And I'm not saying that you need to spill out all your emotions at any given moment, because trauma dumping on your friends isn't cool. But if you have people in your life that every time that you seem to be sad or angry or feeling any kind of emotion that isn't happy or excited, that they seem to push you away, then those aren't good friends. And you honestly won't get much from them in your life. So then it's time to look around and find people who accept you more and who love you for all of you, not just happy you. And you can be toxic in another way as well. You can fall for toxic productivity, which is something that I did hard, like really hard, and it ended in a burnout, and it wasn't fun. So let's try to avoid toxic productivity altogether, shall we? I think that's a good idea. Toxic productivity is just as ingrained in society as toxic positivity, maybe even more. We always need to be doing more and more until we can't do more anymore, and that's a lot of more. We crash. I crashed. I know many others who will crash. I know other people who have crashed. We live in a burnout generation because we are obsessed with productivity. We put all our value. Our society has taught us that all our value is in what we produce and how much we can do and how much we accomplish. And it's that belief that if you're not working, you are wasting time. That you need to be achieving things and you need to be doing more all the time. Our work is the most important thing. Achieving things, productivity is the most important thing, even if that means sacrificing our health, our relationships, our emotional well-being. It doesn't matter as long as you are achieving things, producing things. It manifests itself in so many ways. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and if you don't recognize yourself in any of these, you can click out of the podcast episode, but I think that you probably will. Do you feel guilty or ashamed if you're not working? Do you work excessively long hours, and do you neglect self-care because of it? Have you put your work above your relationships or any important hobby or passion project of yours? Do you feel like you always need to be productive? Do you feel that your worth is tied to what you do in life? Do you feel that your worth is tied to your job? And lastly, do you feel behind on other people? Do you feel like you have not achieved enough in life yet? I still answer yes to at least 3 of those questions, but I used to answer yes to all of them. So I feel like I did make progress, but it's still a hard journey because it is really pushing back on all that society has taught us and all that a lot of people still believe in. And Kitty Cat, you are in my light. You cannot be there. And you might think that working hard isn't that big of a problem, especially not when you're young, you're building your future, you'll slow down once you have kids. It can lead to a lot of problems. It can not only lead to burnout, obviously, but it can also lead to anxiety and to bad health overall. But it will also impact your friendships, your relationships, and your overall feeling of happiness. Because if we tie our whole entire worth to producing and accomplishing things, we don't have any purpose in life outside of work. But how do we let this go? How do we change our whole entire mindset on this topic? I would advise you to start slow, because otherwise you will lose your mind. If you are working all the time right now and then all of a sudden you stop working altogether or you start doing the bare minimum, you will lose your mind because it's too much of a change for your brain. So instead, I suggest that you take small steps of implementing more life and less work into your days. And how I did that was in 2 ways. So first, I love productivity. I love managing. I love achieving. I love meeting deadlines and doing a good job. So I started managing my self-care as if it was part of my work. I schedule it in. I still do, by the way. I schedule it into my calendar. I put it on my to-do list. I treat it as something that has to have a good outcome as well, because it will make sure that I do more, that I produce more. Is this still a very toxic mindset? Yes, kind of. But it will help you because it will mean that you actually take care of yourself, even though when it is from an idea that you want to achieve more and you want to do more with your life. This worked for me when I was trying to get out of my burnout, because I had to go from working all the time to not working at all. And that was such a big adjustment that my brain really needed to structure things. So I started structuring my self-care, and it actually worked. So you can start by adding a little bit more of a self-care activity in your calendar, one day at a time, a little bit more hours at a time. If you are working weekends as well, try to limit a little bit of that time. Try to take an afternoon off and then a whole day, and eventually build up to your whole entire weekend. But don't start with the whole weekend, because that will just stress you out and it will not be that great either. Another thing that a lot of people tend to do, and I'm still guilty of that actually, is to listen to your body and give it exactly what you are denying yourself. If you have ever said that you can only go outside once you finish this deadline, or that you don't have time to eat because you have so much work to do, that is the exact time that you need to eat or that you need to go outside. If you are denying yourself something, do the exact opposite, even if it's for 5 minutes. But you will come back to your work feeling so much better, and it will protect yourself from going way too overboard. And again, look at it as a way to produce more if that helps your brain right now. Eventually we'll get there. Eventually you will let go of that productivity and of having to do stuff all the time. But if that's hard for you right now, just try to see every single thing of self-care and rest as a part of being productive, because in the end it will help you more. Spend time with your loved ones as well. This will help. If you resting, for example, doesn't have to be doing nothing. It can be doing something different. It can be going on a workout with your friends. It doesn't have to be lying down on the couch. It can be visiting your grandma. You don't have to stay inside all day. So try to spend those moments of rest with other people, if that helps you to make it feel more purposeful, because you are actually enjoying and giving your time to other people. And if you really need to make changes in your life, changing jobs might be necessary. If you are in a completely toxic work culture right now, and there is no way to take care of yourself in any way in the job that you do, get out. And I know that that's easier said than done, but no job is worth working yourself into the ground. It's not worth it. So please, please, please start planning your way out. You will be okay eventually. Changing jobs is hard, but don't just quit your job, but start looking for something else. And you will be better off for it. You really, really will. So I hope that helped you. I really, really hope it did. If you want to know more about building your dream life, you can always subscribe to the channel or subscribe to the podcast. It really, really means the world to me. I also started uploading more on my social channels, so those will be linked in the description as well. I also wanted to give you 2 book recommendations if this is a topic that you actually want to learn more about. And it is first Toxic Positivity by Whitney Goodman. I haven't completely finished this book, but she's a psychologist who talks about the idea that being happy all the time isn't great, basically. It talks about how always being positive, and that ideal of having to be happy all the time isn't healthy for us, and how we can approach it in a better way. And about toxic productivity, there is a ton of books that are written about this, but I Didn't Do the Thing Today by Madeline Dorr really changed my perspective on productivity. I still love doing a lot of things, and I still love achieving things, but only for me. And that is what this book taught me, that doing the thing today doesn't equal happiness and fulfillment. So these 2 books, if you want to know more about everything that we talked about in this podcast episode, I would highly, highly recommend that you read them. And lastly, I quickly wanted to mention the ebook that I have, the Dream Life Workbook, that will help you to create a vision of what you want your dream life to look like. And then in over 60 pages, helps you by making it come to life. So if that's something that you might be interested in as well, it is linked down below. And with that, I'm gonna let you go, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Toodaloo!